What's up guys? So as you can tell from the title, this is another favourites video, but this one's going to be a little bit different from usual because of course I want to talk about the things that I've really liked over the past month. What month is this? That would be a good thing to know. This is May, so last month was April. Okay, I want to talk about my favourite things from April, but I also want to talk about one of my favourite things at a bit more length and in a bit more detail, and that is the Netflix series 13 Reasons Why. And I know that some of you will have clicked on this video and you're interested in the favourites and not interested at all in the 13 Reasons Why aspect. So I'm going to try and split the video into two parts. So I'm going to start off with my favourites. I'm just going to go through them as I usually do, and then I'll skip to the 13 Reasons Why kind of discussion part. For those of you who want to watch my favourites, just continue watching just now, and as it gets to the 13 Reasons Why part you can just click off if you want to. And for those of you who want to watch the 13 Reasons Why part and aren't interested in the favourites, I will leave a timestamp in the top line of the description. And for those of you who want to watch it all, continue as you are. That was a lot of description, and now we can begin. Before I get started talking about these things, I think I just want to add a quick warning. Because I'm going to be talking about the show, the first one's pretty obvious. I will be going into a bit of depth, I will be talking about storyline, and so there's some bits from the script that I want to pull out and kind of talk about a little bit. So there is a kind of spoiler warning there. I will probably give away quite a lot of things, so if you haven't watched it, you're warned. And the second warning is that the content of the show, as you've probably heard, is potentially quite triggering. It deals with a lot of difficult issues such as bullying, psychological abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, substance abuse, and of course the main topic is suicide. I will be talking about little bits and pieces about mental health, nothing too in depth. If there's anything that I change with what I'm going to say, I will give a brief warning beforehand, but I just wanted to put that out there so everyone who's going to watch it knows that those are the kind of things that are going to be talked about. I don't have a lot of physical things here because a lot of my favourites from the past month are not physical things. They're all kind of like things that I've done or events or movies that I don't have on hand. The first thing though that I can kind of physically hold in my hand, which feels freaky as hell, is the fact that I finished uni last month. How freaking cool is that? Does not feel like it's been 4 years. Did not feel like I'd earned some kind of degree last year. I didn't get any real sense of accomplishment out of that because I still had a year to go. But now I have an honours degree. That F? How did that happen? It was so strange how it happened because it just kind of came out of nowhere because classes finished like 3 weeks before my final submission, which was my dissertation, and I have that shiny, beautiful thing here. Ow! We'll be making a video to discuss a little bit more about my dissertation because there's some things that I need to tell you guys about that. Stay tuned. But yeah, because classes finished first and then I was still working on things, I didn't really acknowledge that I had finished until I literally handed everything in, and for a day or two I was like, yeah? Dinner? I'm guessing that means dinner, yeah? Oh yeah! I'll be right back. I'ma go scran my wee pan in. In fact, quickly before I go, I'll just finish my point, okay? Yeah, it kind of came out of nowhere until the few days after I'd handed everything in, where I was like, I don't have anything to do. And then I went in to like hand all my books back and everything like that, and it was like, oh, I was walking out the building and I had a wee moment where I was like, I'm never gonna walk back in here again. I probably will. I do want to go back because I want to have a meeting with my course coordinator, my supervisor, because I want to give them like a bottle of champagne or something like that because they've been incredible with me, especially in my last year, especially since in fact, forever, actually. So I probably will go back for that, but I had this moment where I was like, this is my last day here as a full-time student. And it was like, oh, and I got a wee bit emotional about it. On the drive home, luckily I had a very long drive home to kind of talk myself through it. And, you know, I just had this wee moment where I was like, crap, we made it. Like, there were numerous points, especially throughout the last year, where I was like, no, I'm done, I don't even want it. And now it's finished. And I actually did it. And it feels freaking awesome. Although one thing, don't know if any of you are on a similar boat, but see when I finished uni, like I could not stop talking about it. And see when I knew that I'd like submitted everything, I was just like, oh, I'm finished. Like everyone who passed by, I was like, hey, guess what? Finished uni. What's up? How's your day? Oh, guess what? I finished uni. And everyone was just like, yeah, we know. We're tired of hearing about it. But you know what? I'm not just talking about finishing uni. The reason that I'm so happy about it is because 18 years of my short, nearly 22-year life has been spent in full-time education. That is now over, unless I go back and decide to do a freaking postgrad or a master's at some point in the far away future, because it's not happening now. Yeah, I'm done. That's what I'm happy about. So I will continue to be enthused, sunshine, and y'all can just clam it. But now I've finished talking about that, I'm gonna go eat my dinner and I'll be right back soon. Okay, where's the button? Can't find the button. And we're back. Although I feel very, very tired now. Does anyone else feel tired after the eat? So annoying. My next favourite was actually in conjunction with finishing uni, and it was actually an app. Now the only thing I don't like about it is the name. It's called Self-Control, and I feel like that just kind of insinuates that if you need it, you don't have self-control. I think they could have come up with something better, like, I don't know, Study Aid or Block or something like that. I do not know. Just something that doesn't sound as freaking mean. Basically how the app works is I got it on my Mac, and you create what's called a blacklist, where you put all the websites that you want to lock or block essentially onto this blacklist, and then you click start and you can decide how long you want them to be blocked for. So like I would block things 24 hours at a time, and I wouldn't be able to go on any social media, I wouldn't be able to access YouTube, I wouldn't be able to go into any shopping websites, and it would just make everything so easier, so I could work on my laptop without feeling that kind of temptation to just, oh, I'll take 10 minutes and look at this. Nah, it kind of kept me focused. The best thing about it is once you set it, you can't just go into the app and decide that you want to make the time shorter or make it longer. You have to wait until the timer runs out. So if you've said 24 hours and 23 hours later you want to look at something, it is locked for another hour. You have no way of changing that, unless I guess if you went into your settings, apparently if you change the date to be a day later, it will obviously stop working and unlock everything again, but then that mucks up all your settings. So is there really a point when you can just live your life normally to no great expense for another hour? But overall, in terms of uni work, it did really help, just kind of knowing that there wasn't any temptation there, and after a while of using it, I would forget to set it at the start of a day and then not like go on to anything, and realise at the end of the day I hadn't locked websites, so I could have went onto them, but I chose not to. So it was kind of like helping you break a bad habit, I guess. So it was very useful if you're still in high school, uni, college, whatever, and you find it helpful to have something that kind of stops you from looking at anything like that. Put your phone away in a drawer and do this to your laptop or Mac or whatever you have, and it'll just kind of take away that temptation. Next up is something that I did way at the start of the month. I actually did it on the 1st of April, which was quite funny because several people thought it was an April Fool's joke. Me, my sister, my future bro-in-law, my future bro-in-law's bro-in-law, my future bro-in-law's bro-in-law's friend, and then a couple of other friends all climbed Ben Nevis. I hadn't done anything that required my walking boots since last summer. There was like Mountaineering camp, there was one called Record Mountain that you could climb in the morning, which was very, very nice. You got nice views and all that. So I did that an odd couple of times last summer, and then prior to that I hadn't really done anything since, or not anything that big, since I was away in Peru and Bolivia years before and did Machu Picchu and the Coca Canyon and stuff like that. So this was like kind of making me realise how much I enjoy it again. Me and my sister managed to get up and back down within about 6 hours. The average that it takes people is 8, so I'm very chuffed with that result. One thing that was really quite funny is that you go through several different weather bands on your way up the mountain, and it's as if it just creates its own climate, which I know mountains tend to do. So when we started climbing, of course you're layered up. You've got thermals, trousers, another t-shirt, you've got like, I had a kind of over cover thing, and then a fleece, and then my jacket, and I had a hat, scarf and gloves in my bag, along with all my water and bits and pieces that I was going to need for getting up. and back down. So you have all that on at the start. You walk for maybe about half an hour and then you're like, whew, it's roasting. I need to take me some layers off. So I'm like walking, like stripping layers off, walking for another hour, and then I was genuinely contemplating just stopping and taking my thermals off. I was so warm and it made me so uncomfortable, and I was just like, nah, I need to get them off. But I didn't. I kept them on and I kept powering through, which I'm quite happy about, because another couple of hours later started peeing down of rain. Another hour later you were surrounded by snow and you could not feel your tootsies. So it was quite an experience. Also, last point, see, when you're climbing a mountain, you get two types of people. People who get really happy when they reach the top, and people who get really happy when they get back down. I was one of those people that I started to kind of get happy as I was getting to the top, because like reaching the top of Ben Nevis, that's a bucket list item for a lot of people. People come here from different places in the world to climb Ben Nevis, and it's on our back doorstep and most of us haven't done it. So I was like, this is really awesome as I was getting to the top, and I loved it. Got up, really enjoyed it. Started coming down and realised very quickly coming down is going to be a bit more difficult than getting up. I got to the point after a couple of hours when I was climbing up that I just stopped feeling anything from the waist down. I stopped feeling pain. I stopped feeling like my thighs were burning away to nothing. And you know, it all just kind of stopped, and it just kind of got into that rhythm of just putting one foot in front of the other, because you were like, I need to keep moving, otherwise I'm going to start to feel the pain of it. But coming down, this was interesting. At the top of the mountain, it was snowing. So when you're coming down a kind of slanted rock face through feet and feet of snow, you know, you slip and you fall. And I thought I was genuinely just going to tumble my way back down at the bottom of the mountain. But once you got through the snow, the way that Ben Nevis is, for those of you who haven't climbed it, it's really like a staircase that kind of goes diagonally up the mountain. It's really, really strange how it's set out, and it's really tempting to go through the diagonal. Don't do that, people get lost. But yeah, the diagonal is like a staircase, which is really strange, but it's like massive rocks that have been put into the earth that kind of make steps, which is really inconvenient at times, especially when you're coming down. I found myself standing on top of like boulders being like, how the F did I get up here? Never mind how am I getting back down without rupturing both of my kneecaps. So by the time I got up and back down, I was a sweaty, trembling, cold, tired mess. So yeah, that was like a good experience. And we'll most likely climb it again. I really would like to climb Ben Nevis again, and I would also really like to do the West Highland Way, because I saw the end of the West Highland Way like signposted right next to Ben Nevis, and a lot of people do Ben Nevis at the end of the West Highland Way. Would totally freaking do that. I really want to do the West Highland Way now. My next favourite is kind of in conjunction with the whole mountain climbing thing, because while I was climbing the mountain, I passed people who were talking about Mount Everest, which obviously I know what Mount Everest was, but a few people started talking about the movie, and I don't know how I wasn't aware of it, but I didn't know that there was a movie called Everest about the 1996 disaster. I didn't know that they had made that, and I don't know how I went through, like, I think it was released in 2015, I don't know how I went through the past 2 years without being aware that this was released, but I hadn't seen it. So of course, I climb Ben Nevis, I get home that night, pass out, like wake up 12 hours later, get home, and what did I watch while I was doing uni work? I put on Everest. And at this point, it is literally one of my favourite movies, because I'm a total hair in my mouth, because I'm a total sucker for biopics or movies that are made about true events or inspired by true events. I just find them a lot more interesting, and I find them a lot more easier to identify with, and I get more of an experience from them if I know that they were real, or there's that potential that if they're based on true events, that the rest of it could be real. And this was one of those movies. It was based on the 1996 disaster on May 11th that killed 8 climbers in total, even though there would be 3 more climbers who would die on the mountain that season. on May 11th, 8 climbers in total died in a freak storm that hit Everest after they had reached what they call the death zone, which is the kind of last kind of trip from, I think it's the South Col to the summit. So the movie follows the people that were on the mountain on that day, and they've taken true accounts from people who lived through it. They've taken accounts from people who were there at base camp. They've taken accounts from people who were like friends and family of the people who were involved. And it was just such a good movie. Like, it was so well made. I know that they probably couldn't fit everything in about that day into the kind of length that a movie has to be, but it was so well made that they were able to kind of show conditions that happen at 28,000 feet when they were filmed at a much lower altitude. The way that they filmed it was so great. I know that some of it was actually filmed on Everest, so good job to the actors for really going for it on that. And it was just, so that movie became a favourite. After I watched that, I got really interested in mountaineering, and one of the things that gets mentioned in the movie is that someone's trying to climb the 7 summits, which is when someone climbs the 7 highest peaks on the 7 different continents. So I was like, oh, this is really interesting. Started watching documentaries about the 7 summits, then started watching documentaries about each of the 7 summits. So I've probably watched every documentary known to man about K2, about all of the Taiwanese mountains that I can't pronounce, all the Japanese mountains that I can't pronounce. I've watched every documentary about Everest for sure. I've watched all the documentaries about Kilimanjaro. It is genuinely, like, I am addicted to watching documentaries about mountaineering. So yeah, big favourite, Everest the movie, and pretty much every documentary on the face of the planet about a mountain. Sticking on the same lines with movies, I went to see Fast 8 last month when it came out, and oh my god! I know a lot of people are getting tired of the Fast and Furious franchise because they're like, okay, you've done 8 movies, like, calm it. But, like, we already know they're making a 9th. They said years ago that they wanted to see if they can get to 10, so I really was not that surprised, and it didn't really bother me. But because it was the 8th movie, I didn't want to keep my hopes up too high because I really liked previous ones, and as far as I'm concerned, none of the Fast and Furious movies are going to beat Tokyo Drift. But anyway, I didn't want to keep my hopes up too high. I didn't want to kind of give it more hype than I really wanted in my head in case I felt let down. So I just kind of went into it completely open-minded, and I did not expect what happened. Like, from the trailers that I watched beforehand, did not see the storyline coming that happens. But in amongst all that and all the serious stuff, they keep an amazing comedy element through the whole movie, and it's legit the best thing ever. Favourite comedy character though? Roman. If I was to look at the movie, you know when you can look at movies and be like, oh, this is like, that's like this person I know, and you're like this guy. If I was to look at the cast of Fast and Furious, I would be Roman. I literally just exist to offer hilarious, unnecessary and sarcastic commentary, and for like comic relief. That's the only reason. Everything he says is just hilarious. I keep on seeing things that he does in my head and it's really funny. So yeah, if you haven't seen Fast 8 yet, I would highly recommend it. It was a really great movie all round. Loads of surprises in it. It's just so funny. You can totally see this being a thing for like ever. We're gonna be like 76 and being like, Fast 42 is coming out next week, do you want to go and see it, Helen? I'll keep watching it as long as it goes. I enjoy them. I don't care what anyone else says, I enjoy them. My next 2 favourites are actual physical things. Hallelujah, I've actually got something to hold. The first one was in a box of goodies that Booty had sent out to me, and this was their Booty Little Oats, which are porridge oats that make a big difference apparently. Little oats that make a big difference, it says on the packet. And I was really surprised that I liked these because on the back it says you don't need to add milk to them. And it says that they're creamy enough as it is. Now I'm very picky with my freaking porridge because I like me some porridge or oatmeal or whatever you want to call it. So when I was reading this and I was like, you don't put milk in it, that's grody. But I tried it. And actually, you don't need milk at all. They are nice enough on their own, and they taste so freaking good. It says up here that they have matcha tea in them as well. Have no idea what matcha tea is, but it tastes delightful. And no, before you've gotten any confusion, this is not a sponsored video. This is just something that they sent out to me to try, along with like the brownies and stuff like that I was actually reviewing. So this isn't sponsored, this isn't a paid review. This is just my own thoughts on something that I didn't think I would like and I actually really enjoy. You get a lot in the bag as well. Like, I've been going to town on this, and it's still, if I shake the bag out, it's still up to like here. So yeah, you get loads. You get a little scoop measury thingy, and literally that's all you need. That and how much water? 125 mils of water, and then you're in the microwave for roughly like a minute or longer if you like your porridge to be thicker, and voila, little oats in a little bowl for a little bit of breakfast. So yes, very much been enjoying these. Definitely a breakfast favourite. Gonna try and finish. I don't know why I felt the need to bite the bag. I'm weird. My next physical favourite is something from Lush, 'cause I'm addicted, but I didn't buy it, it was a gift. So that's like, that's okay, isn't it? For Christmas, my sister and future bro-in-law, he is gonna get so annoyed that I keep calling him that. But the two of them made me up this hamper for Christmas full of loads of things that could help me relax. So of course there was some bath stuff in there. And one of the things they put in was this bubbly shower gel. I can't remember if this is limited edition or if it was seasonal. So if it is and I'm talking about it, I'm sorry. I just wanted to share it because I really like it, and I'm sorry if you can't go and buy it. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about it anyway. I'm sorry. Now the strange thing is, this is one of my favourite things and I have been using it a lot, but like, you can't really see because of the sticker, but it's only been used down to like here. So a little bit strange for it to be one of my favourite things, but it's just because you don't need to use a lot. Funnily enough, because it's called bubbly, I don't know if this is the reason why it's called bubbly, but it made loads of bubbles from not very much product. So you can literally put the tiniest bit on a sponge or a loofah and bubbles everywhere. This probably wouldn't be something that I use later in the day or at night. This is probably a morning thing for me, purely because it smells so fresh and it's just, oh my god, it's orangey, fruity goodness. Oh! It says on the front, a Bucks Fizz breakfast boost packed full of sweet orange oil, fresh grape juice to help your morning go off with a bang, or should that be pop? Don't get the joke at the end, but the principle's there. It's very fresh, it's very fragrant, and it's quite strong smelling. So see, in the morning when you wake up and you're tired and you go into the shower, stick this on a sponge, you will wake right up. If this was limited edition or seasonal, I am sorry again, but it will probably come back out. I'm guessing that something like this was very popular. But if you can't get this exact one, I would highly recommend looking at Lush's shower gels anyway. They last a long time, they smell really great. Another one that I could recommend that is available right now, and I know it is Happy Hippie. It is very, very fresh. Again, very grapefruity, like this. Very fresh, very nice, all natural ingredients. What more do you want to put on your bad day? We're almost done with the favourites. There is one more thing that I do want to talk about. It is 13 Reasons Why related, but it is just the soundtrack. So there's nothing, you know, like serious or potentially triggering going to be talked about for the next wee while. Without getting too into how I feel about the show, I really think one of the key aspects of any TV show or any stage show or a musical or a movie or a documentary or anything is the soundtrack. You need the right music to set the right tone, to give the audience the right feel, because a lot of the time people aren't going to pick up on every single word as much as we would all love to. There are going to be little bits and pieces that fall away from us, so we need the music there to back up what we're supposed to be feeling for anything that we miss. And 13 Reasons Why, as far as I'm concerned, gets everything very, very right with their soundtrack. If I was to pick my top 3 songs from the TV show, although there is that song by Selena Gomez that gets played at the end, which I do enjoy, if I was to pick my top 3, the first one would have to be Run Boy Run. I can't remember who it's by, but you know, when I heard it, I was convinced that I'd heard it before, and I'm pretty sure they used that or a similar bass line of that in Divergent. I'm pretty sure, like when she chooses diversion, she climbs the bridge, I'm pretty sure that's what's on in the background. But I really like Run Boy Run. I feel like it creates such a great suspense. I feel like the drums and everything in the background is just like, oh! The next song is called Hunger by Amused, I'm pretty sure. I'm gonna double check. Come on phone, take your time. It is Amused. That was one of the songs that was played in the high school dance kind of scenario part, and it was just so jumpy and so uplifting, and it was kind of nice to hear stuff like that going on in the background with the storyline taking the route that it was. It was kind of nice to have that juxtaposition. I love that word, and I love the thing that it creates. But completely separate from the show, it's such a good song. It's so, like, it's the one that you want to just put on your headphones and just dance around the house to, and I don't do that. Favourite song though is Mess Is Mine by Vance Joy. A lot of people have probably heard of the artist and had not heard of this song previously. I had heard it once, and as soon as I heard the kind of opening notes, I was like, oh my god, are they using this song right now? I got goosebumps. It's just, I love the lyrics. Like when it talks about like, your mess is mine. Like, that's such an amazing thing to say to someone. Like, it's like saying that everything, like, your problems are mine. It's like they're ours. It's, oh, I just love me a good song. Sue me. But if you've not heard of those 3 songs or heard other songs on the 13 Reasons Why soundtrack, even if you're not interested in the show or didn't like the show, I think we can all appreciate aspects of the soundtrack and like give them credit where they're due, because come on, they're pretty freaking decent. Sorry, my camera kind of died and I was kind of leaving to go on a train a far way away like 2 hours later, so I just decided to film this part another day when I got back. Kind of works since this is a 2-parter. So let's talk about the series 13 Reasons Why. For those of you who are going to be leaving us at this point, goodbye, thank you very much, I love you, thank you for watching. For those of you who are just joining, hello, welcome to the video. For those of you who are still here, hey! So I've written down a couple of bullet points because there's quite a couple of things that I want to cover about the series. I do want to point out, if you're looking for one of those reviews who's going to slate the show on all its negative points, you're not gonna get that here, I'm sorry. It's not how I roll. I believe in like finding the good and the power in different things, even things that may seem on the surface not very great. I'm not saying that that's how this show is, but it's my general perspective on things. I prefer to look at the good rather than the bad, the positive rather than the negative. So if that's what you're looking for, then I'm sorry. But yeah, let's just get going because I have quite a bit to get through. Firstly, just worth saying, did I enjoy the show? Yes, I did. Did I think it was perfect? No, I did not. However, I do still think the show is a very valuable milestone in terms of contributing to the discussion about the subject matter, or subject matters. It does cover quite a lot. And I think it needs to be given more credit for that. A lot of people have taken to saying, oh, the show didn't do this, that, or the next thing, or didn't discuss this, or didn't explain that. But nowhere have I seen a statement given by the creators, the producers, the director, the writers, the actors. No one has said that it was going to be some magical answer to everything: mental health, high school life, adolescent perspective, you know, bullying prevention, suicide prevention thing. It never claimed to be that. So is it safe to say that we as an audience maybe created too high expectations? More on that in a moment. For now though, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to art, depicting things like this and achieving perfection is pretty much impossible. Even if you were just to look at the subject of mental health, it expands over a massive spectrum that you can't possibly discuss all of, because 1, it's constantly evolving, constantly changing, and 2, because when it comes to art and theatre and television and movies, etc., there is significant limitations in terms of the final product's length. So for this, it was 13 episodes. There was only so much it could achieve in 13 episodes. I guess if you saturated the content right down, you could cover more, but at the same time, as it is, people are extremely sensitive to things being too traumatic, too emotional, too intense, too potentially triggering, too harsh is something that's been used to describe this show quite a lot, or too graphic or too emotional. So it's trying to get a balance on a set of scales that's constantly going to disappoint people. It's always going to disappoint someone. There's always going to be someone who's not impressed with it, regardless of what way you decide to go. You lower the scale a little bit and you discuss the issues maybe a little bit less and don't cover as much, but then you've got people being annoyed because you're not talking about every eventuality or every possibility. So you talk about more and more and more and put more and more and more into the series and make it more intense, and then people are annoyed because you're making things too graphic. That's a huge problem in mental health right now, where people want open discussion, but they also don't want to hear about it. I can personally say that I was in a discussion with a group of people not so long ago where someone actually said, the topic of mental health came up, and someone actually said, I think people should be able to be a lot more open about their experiences with mental health, because when they talk about them, that's where they can really help other people, and that's where a lot of change happens. So I, feeding off of that, started to talk about like my views and my experiences. And do you want to know what their response was? Oh, I don't really want to hear about that. That makes me really uncomfortable. You can't wish for something to be there and then say, oh no, I don't like it. There needs to be a lot more give and take, understanding and effort from both sides if we're ever going to go over this. But linking that back to the show and what I was talking about, I think there are two ways that we can go about discussing it. You can either, or we can either, contribute nothing but scathing reviews and say, they did this badly, or the acting is that, or how could they show this, or how could they write that. Or we can look at it and say, it's not perfect, there are faults, but it is an absolutely essential stepping stone, just like all the shows that came before were a stepping stone for it. So this is going to act as a platform for the next project that's going to do better than this one, just like this one did better than some that came before it. If the public are looking for a movie, a TV show, whatever art form to depict these issues perfectly this quickly, because let's remember, open discussion and support for mental health has not been going on that long, and they don't want to see any error, that's beyond unrealistic. It's like people want perfection without error. They want the final product without the work. They want the top of the mountain without the freaking journey up there. If we look at it like a mountain, we, just like everyone else who's contributed to the making of TV shows and movies and things like that, are working towards the level of understanding, of support, of education, of effort from both sides that we need to make sure issues like mental health don't go unnoticed and get what they need. But it is a journey, and we should appreciate the stages of that journey, because without them, we don't advance, we don't progress, we don't learn from mistakes. You don't get the top of the mountain without the little steps up to the top. It just doesn't happen. So bottom line, the show is not perfect, but I think it deserves credit for what it has done. I think people are very, enjoying focusing on everything that it didn't do, apparently. Moving on though, actually before I move on, I just want to quickly mention something. Because of what I've studied and experience that I have, I've noticed that I do by habit now watch TV and movies and things like that very differently than I used to. I'm a lot more aware of things that may not necessarily jump out to a lot of people, and it's just purely because I know how things work. So I'll be like, oh, they're moving the camera because of this, or they've set up the scene like that because they want to show this emotion, or lighting's been used here, or dramatic irony there, and it's just, I'll be drawing on some of that as I talk about the show. But if I need to further explain stuff, I will. I won't just go rambling on stuff that no one's gonna get. Moving on to what I said earlier about expectation. Now, when I've spoken to people about the show, one of the main things that people have told me is they disliked it because of the hype that it got. And I've just finished my dissertation on audience to performer relationships through different media. And one of the facts about audiences, and this is stretching back decades and decades, I will not bore you with the history of it, but it's the fact that any significance, like cultural significance of any art form, is accumulated and given to the art form by the audience. So people are saying that they don't like the hype. Hype is created by the audience. Audience is people. We are people, so therefore we are the audience. So isn't it partly our fault? Granted, we can't control media and things like that unless we're involved in that way, but for what we can control, I think we should maybe take a little bit of responsibility there. I think a lot of people overestimated what the show was supposed to be for and what it was focusing on and what it's created for. But if you look at what the producers and the creators and such have actually said about it, largely they've fulfilled, you know, what they set out to do. They've achieved the goals that they set themselves for the show. I think there was just a lot of misunderstanding about what those goals were, and then people set the bar far too high. I definitely think that's where part of the problem came from. Not all of it, obviously, because there are other contributing factors, but I think if we're going to point fingers about it, we should accept the fact that some of the responsibility is also ours. Very even-keeled on that fact. Another thing I found really interesting was one of the reasons that people also said they disliked the show was that they couldn't find it realistic, that they felt like different things and situations were exaggerated. I lost my words there. They felt like different situations were exaggerated to a point where they were unrealistic and such. But the show, we have to remember, was created for what the producers referred to as a young adult audience. They didn't specify an age bracket, so I can't guess that, and I don't think there's a set parameter for young adult in the industry. I don't actually know. If I'm wrong, please correct me, educate me below. They just said young adult, and that then qualified the material to be a lot more sensitive. Now, what happens with any project when you assign a target audience is that every single creative decision at every stage in the process becomes about that audience. It's basically to gear the project in their direction, because if they succeed with them, their project succeeded because that was their target. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to please everyone, but if they please their target audience, their success. So because the audience was young adult, it was designed for them. I learned so much more about this when I watched their, Beyond the Reasons featurette that plays after the series on Netflix, because they talk about the scientific differences between young adult brains and adult brains, because young adult brains aren't fully developed, so they don't fully function. So whenever they're presented with a situation, it presents itself very differently than it would to a fully fledged adult brain. So with that in mind, and with the fact that design decisions were being made for that audience, screenwriters were then writing situations and reactions to those situations as if they were happening to and being witnessed by young adults and young adult brains. So it's perfectly normal that anyone who's out with the young adult age range to not really resonate with that, but it doesn't mean that they're not completely accurate for people who are within the young adult age range and do have, you know, a brain that's developed to that stage. It's like a Peppa Pig movie could be released and kids of a certain age will love it and be like, this is amazing, but adults could be like, this is complete rubbish. But it doesn't mean that it's not good and accurate for kids, you know? Then of course there's the fact of personal bias, which we all have, and things that we experience, you know, differ to us depending on our bias, and that can come from past experiences, both good and bad. And for some people when watching this show, it can come from past experiences with mental health itself, or with bullying, or with substance abuse, or with rape, or with suicide. But overall, as much as you should consider those things when watching, I do still think that this show demands a lot from its audience. Yes, you can watch the show purely as a form of entertainment, if you can call it that, given the subject matter. I don't really feel comfortable calling it that, but it's what it is essentially, because it's a show. So you can watch it for entertainment purposes at face value, but I think if we're truly to get what is meant by it and what the messages are, because I believe there's more than one in the show, I don't think it was ever meant to say one specific thing. We've still to do, as an audience, so much work to get there. The show demands such a high level of understanding and knowledge and processing, and maybe that means that things could have been shown slightly clearer, or maybe explained slightly better, you know, maybe not using such stylistic ways. I'm not particularly sure, but maybe it means that things could have been portrayed in a way that makes the expectations of us as an audience slightly more realistic. You know, just as we need to, you know, move our expectations to a point where they're realistic for the show, you know, creators of the show should move their expectations so that they're realistic for the audience. You know, not everyone who's going to watch the show has, you know, a vast knowledge about any of the issues discussed. Not a lot of people have experience with the issues discussed. So maybe they could jiggle things around a little bit so the messages can still be easily conveyed, but maybe just to a level that's easier for audiences to access. Moving on to look at the production of the show, a lot has been said about the whole 13 episodes thing, both good and bad, although it does present itself to be a bit of an obvious choice because 13 tapes, 13 episodes. Knowing all the different ways that that could have been approached from a producer's standpoint, I think it deserves a lot more credit. That choice deserves a lot more credit than what it's been given. I think there's definitely a lot more reason behind it than what people can get, you know, immediately from seeing the show. Primarily because it involves us and the stories in a way. If you think about it, we are delivered via Netflix 13 episodes and told to watch, just like the characters are delivered 13 tapes and told to listen, and then we have the choice if we want to watch them all in one night, like Alex does listening to the tapes, or do we space them out like Clay does. So it kind of creates this really interesting parallel that puts us on the same level as the people in the show. The parallel also means that we go through Hannah's story in the same way that, you know, all the characters did, but obviously we don't see them listen to the tapes, we just see Clay. So we go through her story in the same way that he does, so it feels like we're experiencing it, so we can really empathise with his character. But a lot of people have been bothered by the tapes for a couple of reasons. The first being the fact that they're tapes. They've said that they're a bit retro and they kind of drag the show back a little bit, or it's unrealistic, but I noticed that Clay actually says something in episode 1 when he's in the car with Tony after Tony's just put on a tape, I believe, and he says, where is it? Everything was better before. Now that jumped out to me. Maybe this is just my weird mind watching shows differently, but that jumped out to me because is he talking about technology or is he talking about everything that happened in the past couple of weeks in the story? So wouldn't it be cool if the tapes were actually a physical representation of the before? You know, he's saying everything was better before, not just in the terms of technology, but with what happened to Hannah and Jeff as well. Another thing people have been annoyed about is the fact that Clay takes so long to listen to the tapes. And my thought on that is the show is supposed to represent reality. It is supposed to depict real life. When you've heard from the producers, a lot of the time they've said, we wanted to create something real. That's a big thing. So I'll briefly mention it now. I do want to talk about it at length later. And the reality is, people experience different things and deal with different things in different ways. And your way of dealing with something may seem completely ridiculous to me, but then my way of dealing with something may seem equally as ridiculous to you for, you know, different reasons surrounding biased personal experiences and stuff like that. So the show focuses on Clay and his one of many different ways that this situation could be dealt with. But the show also kind of mentions different ways that other characters dealt with it. Like, Alex said that the first time he listened to the tapes, so not only did he listen to them once, he listened to them more than once. He doesn't specify if it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. But, you know, the first time he listened to them in all one night. Then we've got characters like Marcus, who said that he only listened to the tapes up until he heard his name, the next person's name, then stopped listening there and passed the tapes on. We never actually find out if he really did that. I wasn't convinced. But a lot of people have this problem with Clay's, as it's been called, leisurely approach to such a devastating situation. And then because of that, episodes have seemed really dragged out and a lot of it seemed like filler content. But I'm gonna say it again, the show depicts real life, and in reality our lives aren't all drama, intrigue, excitement, you know, action-packed amazingness all the time. So let me ask you personally, if someone was to make a 50-minute episode about your day, what would it look like? Would it be awesome for all 50 minutes? Because I know for sure mine wouldn't. You get the picture. Not every minute of reality is interesting, and they're trying to mirror reality. So some of it should seem like it's unimportant. But I think one of the things about the show is that everything is important. Everything that you do is important. So again, I think that was more purposeful, and I think it's been taken the wrong way. Maybe this is the whole, you know, it wasn't shown very well and there's a lot of expectation on the audience and all that kind of thing. All ties in together. Moving on now from the tapes themselves, another big talking point about the show is that the depiction of Hannah's character has been that she is attempting to blame other people for a choice that was, at the end of everything, essentially hers to make. And that, you know, her creation of the tapes is a way to blame other people, and that she exaggerates the circumstances because some of the reasons aren't all that bad. And the fact that she made these tapes, it's an act of revenge after she's gone. I can understand why people would think those things, because it is easy to see, you know, what would back that kind of way of thinking up. But if I put my personal bias into it, with my experience of a situation like this, I did not see it like that at all. I didn't see this pretty girl who gets to leave this legacy of blame and a lesson to be learned for people who did her wrong out of spite. I just saw a human being who, at the end of a vicious cycle of events, found herself in a desperate situation and tried to vent in a way that would allow people to understand the gravity of what those seemingly little things they did had on her, and, you know, the effect they had on her and how they made her feel. I didn't see it as revenge. I didn't see it as anger. I found it to be, you know, she was grasping for a way to deal with what happened. And fair enough, some of the situations she talks about are seemingly a lot smaller and less severe than some of them, but what's small to you may be big to someone else. Again, remembering, you know, the science of the young adult brain thing. And if you're already dealing with the fallout of one thing, it's natural that the next thing that happens is going to feel a lot worse than it would have if the previous thing hadn't happened. Put it in this context. You're out shopping one day, someone walks past you and nudges your arm. And, you know, it's probably not going to hurt very much. But imagine you're out shopping, had recently broke your arm, are in a cast, and someone walks by and bangs your arm. Probably going to hurt a little bit more had you not just broken your arm. That's in a physical sense. But the same thing can be said for your mind. If you're wounded up here, the next thing that happens can feel twice as bad. And as soon as you start getting into that snowball effect, it can feel never ending. So something not that bad could happen to her, but because of what she'd already been through, it felt like the world was falling down around her. I can really relate to that perspective of something happening before making something small feel worse. Like, not very long ago there was something like beyond ridiculously false that someone had said that I said. It was classic rumour mill rubbish, which on any average day wouldn't have bothered me, because I would have just been like, that's your karma, not mine. But given the really difficult situation that I was already in, this seemingly small thing hit me like a bus, and I was beyond distraught about it. One, because it was a lie. Two, because, you know, when someone says something about you, you don't know how many sets of ears that it reaches, and you don't know how many people have listened to it, or worse, chosen to believe it. And when something like that happens, you can't, like, realistically go around and remedy your reputation with every individual person. It's just not possible. I remember this particular thing happened, it was a few weeks before my mum's birthday, and we had ordered flowers for her and I was supposed to go and pick them up. But the day that I was supposed to go, I went down and I sat in my car and just cried for about half an hour, because I didn't want to get out my car and walk down the high street, because I didn't know if anyone that I was passing had potentially heard this lie about me and were walking around with this warped perception of who I was as a person in their head, you know, that to me was terrifying, and it was crippling to the point where I could not get myself out of the car. But as I say, had this happened at any other time, you know, in any other day, maybe it was just a really bad day, you know, it wouldn't have bothered me. I would have just been like, meh. Like now, today, I can look at what happened and laugh at it because I do see it as that, you know, ridiculously small thing that has absolutely zero impact on my life. But then it was like, I can't even explain how I felt that day. And I totally understand that gut-wrenching feeling of just wanting someone to understand the potential ripple effect of their decisions, because they're not all seeing. They don't know what you've been through. They don't know what they're potentially triggering off. And I'm not saying people need to walk on eggshells every day of their life, but you know, there's a line of what's being kind to a person and what's not. And I think that's one of the main messages of the show, that your actions have consequences. To quote Clay's dad from an episode that I can't remember, the one where he has a hangover, because he said there's something to be said about hangovers. They teach you that your actions have consequences. Also, I don't think she was trying to blame other people for a choice that she made. If you listen to a lot that she says in her tapes, you know, she blames herself a lot as well. Someone who's trying to pin blame on other people does not take responsibility, and she's incredibly harsh on herself a lot, pretty much in every single episode. Again, I do see why people would think that, but it's also one of those things that if you've experienced it in some way, you'll understand it better. But not everyone can experience the same things to understand them. It's all very strange. Again, a lot to be expected from the audience. There's another couple of main talking points about the show that I do want to discuss. I don't want to elongate them too much, so sorry if you feel like I'm going through a bit periodically, but I've got a lot to say. It's the best way I can do it. First thing is that a lot of people are apparently getting on at other people since the release of the show for becoming fake advocates. What? Granted, people may not have been an advocate for any of the issues raised before the show was released, but if this has flipped some kind of switch for them, or been a moment of realisation for them, or brought things to light for them, shouldn't that be a good thing? Why are we targeting them and making it bad? Of course we're not. We see things and we experience things that gradually through life craft our moral and cultural compass, which then allows us to choose what things are important for us throughout our lives. And if that means becoming an advocate for something, then that's what it means. So yeah, I don't really get the whole fake advocacy thing. I guess the way that some people are describing it is that people are jumping on the bandwagon a little bit. But, you know, as I've said before, we can, you know, waste energy and waste spirit on looking at that perspective of it, or we can just focus on what we want to do, you know, to advance the conversation in a positive way, rather than focusing on the negative stuff that's coming out of it. Second, this one makes me a little bit angry, I'm not gonna lie. I have a quote from an article, and I read a lot of articles about the show, and this one has said that the show is completely inaccurate because suicide is not caused by things that happen to you. It is caused by a chemical imbalance in the brain. Full stop. From a medical standpoint, that is just completely wrong. It is completely inaccurate. I don't want to talk about it anymore other than saying that it is completely inaccurate, and that comes from me talking to qualified professionals about that, and they have been appalled at that statement. So it is completely inaccurate. That's all I'm gonna say. Third thing, now when I wrote this there was still a lot of, you know, here nor there about whether we were going to get a season 2 from the show, but a lot of people didn't really understand how they were going to make a season 2, and then there was a lot of people who were like, we need to see more of the story. Personally, I would have seen more power in the show had they decided not to have a second season. That's not to say that I'm already passing judgment on a season 2 that I have not seen and that I know no details about. I wouldn't do that. But I think looking at the subject matter, having season 1 end the way that it did is very symbolic of what actually happens when you lose someone in that way. Things just stop. You know, their story stops. They don't get resolution. There's no explanations. There's no answers a lot of the time. This person's story just stops. And your story with that person stops. And that, it all just happened so suddenly. And I think had they kept, you know, to one season, ending the way it did, so abruptly, with loads of people asking loads of questions, I think that would have been the most accurate depiction of what happens when someone makes the choice to take their own life. But again, I can only speak from, you know, my bias, but from that, that's just what happens. And I think I would have preferred them to leave it as just one season. Final-ish thing, something that's really gotten a lot of people going is a line that Sky says to Clay and Tony, and it kind of leads me on to my last main point that I want to talk about. I believe this was in episode 11, and she says suicide is for the weak. Now I just want to outright say I do not agree with this statement. I am not sympathising with it in any way. I'm just trying to rationally explain why it and things similar to it that generated a similar response from the audience were used. This show, according to the directors, producers, screenwriters, actors, anyone that's talked about the show's purpose and direction, was that it was to show something real. It is made to show real life. It's made to show reality. And there are a lot of things that people are pointing out that they don't like in the show that still happen in real life. This includes people thinking suicide is cowardly. This includes the act of someone committing suicide itself. This includes people being raped. This includes the main thing that people are talking about right now, the fact that depression, anxiety and mental health, those words are not used throughout the series. All of those things happen in real life. People still have those opinions because they aren't educated to a point where they can think anything else. People still have these tragic things happen to them, and largely it's still not talked about. And people complain about these things on screen. They write paragraphs on social media. They make ranty YouTube videos about it, when the truth is this show is holding a mirror up to everything that is still wrong in our society, to everything that is still wrong in our real life. And because of that, we can't point a finger to one of those things on the screen and say it's wrong without pointing 3 fingers equally back at ourselves. If everyone took all this passion and this fire and productive anger to these things that they're saying are wrong in the show and put them into the real life occurrences, you've got an army and you've got loads of people who care about something, and you can see actual change happen in real life. Suddenly you go from people sitting in front of their screens saying make better TV shows to people out in the real world pointing out real wrongs, demanding real change for real people. Isn't that better than summarising something into 140 characters then forgetting about it? That is my overarching view, that the show is pointing out real problems that we still have, and we can either complain about them on screen or we can work towards solutions to fix them in reality. But don't get me wrong, there are things in the show that I wasn't very keen on. There were aspects that I didn't really like, but my overarching perspective is that it's presenting us with an opportunity to see for ourselves where we're going wrong, and you know, we don't get that very often. I think we need to take advantage of it and run with it. But now I'm finished sharing some of my thoughts from the show, and I say some of because, you know, I could do a 2-hour live stream talking about this show, honestly, if I was to cover everything that came to my mind. But I didn't want to make something that lengthy. But since I am finished talking, please do kindly and politely continue the discussion in the comments below, and while you're down there, also share with me your favourite thing from last month, because I almost forgot that this was also a favourites video. But other than that, make sure to give this video a big one of these, leave one of those, click subscribe. Much love you guys, and I shall see you all next week. Bye!